What's up, you guys, and welcome to another episode of 31 Views. And I'm here to review The Exorcist, which is definitely, I will say that it's probably the scariest movie ever made. And came out in 1973, December 26th. Was directed by William Friedkin. Friedkin? I don't know. And it was based on a book by William Peter Blatty. I never read the book, but I've watched this movie multiple times, and especially recently, I got to see it for this review. And despite the fact that I've seen it a million times, I still have, seen it a million times on TV. I have the VHS and DVD. And once I get to see the Blu-ray, I'll definitely get my hands on it if I see it, anytime in front of me. Because right now I've got a lot of movies on my list. So this movie came out in 1973. At that point, it was one of the highest-grossing movies ever. I think it was actually the highest-grossing movie when it came out. Until I think Jaws. Jaws came after that, and then it was the highest grossing, and then after that, you had Jurassic Park. And this movie, I think that it deserves all the accolades it gets. Of the fact that it's like the scariest and one of the best movies ever made, and all of that. I do agree with everything. It's one of the very rare moments where I'm like, yep, this deserves it, because when you see it, it still holds up. The effects hold up, the story holds up, the characters hold up, the acting and the performances and the what the characters would do, the motivations, they work absolutely well. So what is this story about? Basically, there's this girl that gets possessed by a demon, and we don't know. We think that it's the devil. It's Satan, because at one point it's like, I'm the devil. That's what the demon says. But in the sequels, it's apparently another demon named Pazuzu, and it would make sense because the beginning of the movie, it's Father Marin. Was it Father Marin? Just to be sure, let me check. Was it Father Marin? Yeah, Father Lancaster Marin. Before as the movie starts, he's like in. He was like a former archaeologist, and there was a moment where he was in. He was. I believe he was in somewhere in let me check. In Iraq. Yeah, he was in Iraq. Just trying to remember because I wanted to say Egypt, but it was in Iraq. Yeah, definitely. It was in Iraq, and in Hatra, and he was there, and they dug out like this demon statue, and it was Pazuzu. That was Pazuzu, but what was later on was that the movie says no, that's actually Satan. So then of course Reagan gets possessed by this demon, and it gets possessed because of there was an artifact that that has that demon in it, and it went into Reagan, played by Linda Blair. And she was damn, like I think, like even as a young girl, I think she had she was very beautiful. Like you got to see her as she progressed, becoming more and more of a gorgeous woman. She had those beautiful eyes and that wonderful smile, and as she grew up, she became more and more gorgeous. And even at a young age, she had she had a knack for acting, but it's saddening that she kind of got pigeonholed in that in that character, or typecasted in that sort of thing, She came back in the sequel, which kind of makes sense because she had a connection to the first one, even though the second one just didn't make sense and it make sense at all. And I don't think that's a movie that I'll be reviewing anytime soon. I might review it like somewhere down the line, but right now I'm not. And she was also in a parody of this called Repossessed. That was a funny movie, but at the same time it was one of the bad spoof movies. It was garbage, but it was like a guilty pleasure of mine because there was some parts of it that I actually enjoyed. But the movie as a whole is absolute garbage, absolute dud. So yeah, like there are a lot of great moments in here. I can't go by one by one, or else I'll be spoiling the movie, and I really don't. I really don't want to. Great movie. You gotta check it out. It still holds up even after 40 years, 44 years. It's been 44 years, and this movie still holds up. Like all the sequels. And there's a fucking TV series out there, and I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna check it out anytime soon because I'm just sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of movies just being remade, and not only that, but be remade into series. It's like, okay, we get it. Like, how much are you going to expand on this? Like, and you're not going to bring back the original cast. Just it doesn't make any sense. You're taking away everything that was appealing from the original and stripping it down completely. So, yeah, this movie I will give it. I'll definitely give it 5 stars. This deserves 5 stars, because for 44 years and it's still holding up. Just goes to show you how much you can do with not only practical effects, because I do think sometimes practical effects I think practical effects right now it's very overrated. There are a lot of things that you can do with CGI. So I'm on board with both. If you're gonna do something with CGI and do something with practical effects and make it work, then that's fine. But here, there weren't a lot of practical effects. There were use of practical effects, but it wasn't the focal point of this. There was more to this, and I love the fact that the horrorness of it was so real. And I do think that this was one of the very early movies to depict exorcism. We had movies about demons and monsters. And there was also Rosemary's Baby that came out earlier, and that was an amazing movie as well. But this movie, I think it was the very first one that tackled exorcism in a very high platform in Hollywood, because it had the studio backing and everything. Any other movie, maybe there was one, but it probably was an independent movie. But this was the very first one that made a huge splash. And not only that, but for God's sakes, a horror movie getting all these awards. It's just it's weird, at that time, that something like that would get all of that, all those accolades. Nowadays, horror movies are just something to be mocked. For many years, it was something to be mocked. Only recently, with like James Wan, where you got to have like serious horror movie directors doing serious horror movies. But for a long time, it was just that, hey, the run-of-the-mill slasher, So, yeah, I give this movie 5 stars for everything that it did, for it trailblazing a very real aspect out of horror movies, because for the longest time, before then, it was all about Dracula and Frankenstein, and I like those. I like those movies. I love those movies. But at the same time, it's just like, okay, we get it. How many times are you going to, recreate the wheel? I've seen so many Dracula movies that's not even funny. From prior to the 70s. It's like I think there was a stretch from like the 30s all the way till the 60s where you would have a vampire movie every other month. So It was a great change of pace, and I'm really looking forward to reviewing some of the sequels. You know, not all of them. The third one and one of the prequels. One of the prequels I thought that was really good, and I will review it somewhere down the line. But I'm not going to subject myself to reviewing the fucking Heretic. And maybe one day, maybe. But until then, rate, comment, favorite, help, please subscribe, share with your friends, share with everybody, and check out my next video. Check out my next video. I'll be talking about something else. I feel like being possessed by Pazuzu. Anyways, take care.